Hi, welcome to another reading of Boston Accent. I'm Mark Mattioli, and we're reading my novel. Boston Accent is available on Amazon.com, and Boston Accent is of mature subject matter for adults only. Let's pick up where we left off. If you've been following along, I kind of left you hanging. I left you in the middle of a segment, so we're going to pick right up where we left off. If you didn't read this segment, you're going to be a little confused. The owners of the bikes beat us to them and grabbed the bikes by the handlebars while screaming in their faces in Spanish, which I'm pretty sure they understood the gist of. Brett and Donnie hold their hands up in front of them as if to say, "We surrender," as they get off the bikes while quickly apologizing and trying to explain they just borrowed them and meant no harm. The owners of the bikes didn't show any interest in their explanation and are now checking the bikes for damage as the cops pull up. Slick and I grab Brett and Donnie and pull them towards the house as the owners of the bikes roll them towards the cruisers, followed by their entourage. We all agree that Brett and Donnie need to disappear, and Brett, showing little concern, says, "I need a beer." Goes back into the house unnoticed by anyone but us. Kevin looks at Donnie and says, "Don't go back in the house. We have to leave." I tell them quickly, I'm staying with Brett, and Kevin says, "We'll find our way home," as they head quickly down the sidewalk away from the crowd unnoticed. Slick motions to me. We go back up to the apartment where we find Brett filling in the others about the excitement outside. It will be another couple of hours before Brett and I venture down the stairs past the scene of the crime. We leave in his car without ever talking to the cops. In the meantime, Kevin and Donnie are having an adventure of their own as they hitchhike back to the South Shore with mixed results. After walking for miles with little luck hitchhiking, they spot a billboard that has a catwalk on it. They decide to try and get some sleep on the catwalk and continue in the morning. Across the street from the billboard is a car dealership with two large logo flags on a flagpole. The temperature has dropped into the 40s, and these flags look like pretty good blankets, so they take them. They awake at dawn and clamber down the ladder, catching the curious stares of a few motorists that are up early on this Sunday morning. It is nearly 11 a.m. when they finally reach their homes, and the two of them go straight to bed. Having a good time can be exhausting. The first semester of school ended quickly, and I found myself home with 2 weeks off with nothing to do but socialize and sleep. Several of us had agreed to spend New Year's Eve together without our girlfriends. Well, to be perfectly honest, I was the only one dating out of this group of friends, and I didn't want Rachel to be the only woman, so she made plans to spend the night with her best friend Valerie. Valerie was dating a musician friend of mine who called himself JT. JT was a great guitar player, but a little high-strung and very much the egomaniac. I could only take him in small doses. Valerie was a beautiful girl, tall, with long, dark, straight hair, and the facial features and skin tone that hinted of a fine mix of Italian, American Indian, or French Canadian. Her personality was more than big enough to handle the likes of JT. Valerie had suffered personal tragedy in her life just 2 years earlier when she had lost her brother in a horrible crash that claimed the lives of 4, 15, and 16-year-olds. In the mid-70s and earlier, it was easy for minors to get a drink in bars. When I was 18, the drinking age was 18, and if you were a year or two younger, fake IDs were available. I never had a fake ID and began drinking in bars when I was 16. I'd always tip big and not draw attention to myself, just quietly drink and make pleasant conversation. The bar these kids hit for the last time in their lives was a dive way out in the woods that often had bands and catered to biker types. I knew all the kids in the car that night, including the fifth kid in the car that survived, Keith Butler. His mom was one of my nurses when I was hit by the car, and she came by the house to visit me when I went home in the cast. All the kids in the car that night were from Pineville and well known in school. As the story goes, the driver, Neil Clausen, got in a fight in the bar with a guy that he found talking to his girlfriend when he came out of the bathroom. He punched the guy and then began screaming at his girlfriend for encouraging his advances. They were asked to leave, and Neil took his anger out behind the wheel of the car. The car, a 1967 Chevy Nova, was a work in progress, and it was a very popular car at the time to restore. Keith had been doing shots of tequila and passed out in the back seat. Valerie's brother Rusty had pushed him off the seat and onto the car's floor so he could lay in the back seat with his girlfriend. Neil and his girlfriend had been arguing since they left the bar, and she now asked Neil to take her home. That just made him madder, and he began to drive even faster, his bald tires screeching around every corner. They finally came to a long straightaway that has a small but tricky curve halfway down before it continues straight. Neil had the car going an estimated 100 miles an hour when he hit that curve. The car left the road and became airborne until it hit a large tree. The tree didn't move, but the occupants of the car did, as their bodies exited via the front windshield or one of the side windows, some of them being decapitated by the car frame as they exited, others losing an arm, leg, or both as they flew out of the car looking for something to hit to slow their progress. The only body found in the car was Neil, who was now in the back seat with a steering column embedded in his chest. His head had come off and was resting on the crumpled hood like some grotesque hood ornament. His girlfriend had been catapulted through the windshield and was 10 feet up in the tree, impaled by a branch that entered the right side of her body and exited her left. The responding emergency team would have to transfer her with a branch still through her as they could not or would not remove it. Rusty and his girlfriend were both found lifeless in a field lying miraculously next to each other. Keith Butler was lying in the middle of the road when rescuers arrived, unconscious but with minor injuries. The fact that he was the only survivor troubled him for a long time. He didn't know who to thank, Jesus Christ or Jose Cuervo. Back in Pineville, New Year's Eve 1976, on the way to 77, the six of us have gathered at Brett's house to have a few beers and shoot some pool before we head out. Our distinguished group includes me, Brett, Roy Boston, Kevin, Donnie, and a friend of Brett's visiting from California named Drew. Brett has volunteered to be the designated driver, and around 9 p.m. we head out with a goal to bar hop until we find something really good, like being invited back to a private party with some girls. As we pull out of the driveway, Drew says he has a surprise for us and hands out disco acid to everyone. Disco acid looked like a tiny record, smaller than your fingernail, and the high can last for as long as 10 hours. All of us take it without hesitation. The first stop on our hit parade is for Heaven's Sake in Kleinburg. Heaven's is a family-style pub with great food, air hockey, and video games. We arrive and get a table on the back wall, which is lucky because the place is packed. We order up pitchers of beer, and someone suggests we smoke a joint before the acid kicks in. Drew has one rolled, puts it in his mouth, and looks at us for approval. Not here, I say. We'll all get kicked out and maybe arrested. No one will notice. Look around, it's New Year's Eve, Drew says as he looks for someone to back him up. Go for it, Brett says, and Drew lights the joint. He then pulls out a device called a shotgun that looks like a Subi honey dispenser, only bigger. You place a joint inside it and then aim the spout at your mouth and squeeze the bottle. The smoke shoots into your mouth with no smoke escaping until you squeeze the bottle. The small amount of oxygen inside the bottle is enough to keep the joint lit, but you have to squeeze it every so often or it will go out. Hope you're all taking notes on this in case you want to give one to somebody for Christmas. We're all trying to be casual about this as we pass it around the table while looking to see if anyone is watching us. Either no one notices or no one cares. It is New Year's Eve after all. We finish the joint, and I for one cannot believe that we just did that. I can now feel the acid coming on. I begin to wonder if maybe it wasn't a good idea. Everyone is laughing and having a good time when Brett points out the framed picture that is on the wall at our table. The picture is a common sketch from the Revolutionary War that shows three men walking while playing instruments. There are two drummers on each side of a man playing a fife. Brett, being a drummer, but more than that, a drummer on acid, becomes obsessed with the picture and comes to the revelation that these men may very well be relatives of his. He then takes a close look to see how the picture is attached to the wall. He pulls out a Swiss Army knife with a screwdriver attachment and begins to unscrew the bottom of the frame, while Drew places his coat on the table to block anyone's view. It only takes Brett a couple of seconds and the screw is out of the frame. He then pulls the frame forward, reaches behind it, grabbing the picture, pulling it out, he rolls it up and places it inside his jacket. Then he replaces the screw and tightens it down just as it had been. Drew takes the coat off the table, and the six of us look at the empty frame and start laughing, just as the waitress returns smiling and says, "Would you like 2 more pictures?" Brett looks at her confused and says, "Pictures? Pitches. Pitches of beer," the waitress repeats. "Oh, sure, that sounds great. I'm sorry, I thought you said pictures, and I think we're all set with pictures, but pitches sounds great." The rest of us are either in tears, trying not to laugh, or running from the table howling. The whole time the waitress is talking to us, she's facing the empty frame and is totally clueless. The waitress returns with our pitches, and the 6 of us drink them down quickly, in between rounds of uncontrollable laughter. The thing about taking drugs like acid or mushrooms is that you're having a good trip, and someone starts laughing, and it is addictive and difficult to stop. You will laugh until you're literally in pain until your face hurts from smiling and your sides hurt. Not to mention, I have been with women that have literally pissed their pants from laughing uncontrollably while tripping. There should be a warning on the label. We decide we are not in the greatest atmosphere for our state of mind and head out to another bar. We all agree we want to go somewhere that has a band, and we head to the oceanside town of Sedgwick to a club that offers music on 2 different floors. Sedgwick is about a 45-minute ride. By the time we get there, we are anxious to get out of the car and inside the club. Brett finds a place to park in the crowded parking lot. We try to retain our composure as we laughed most of the ride here. Our goal is to just get into the club where the music is, and hopefully that will calm us down and we can try to act normal. Someone suggests that we close our eyes, cover our ears, and breathe deep breaths to control our laughing. We all try it, sitting like that for close to 2 minutes. "Okay, let's go in," Drew yells, so we can hear with our ears covered. Before we can get out of the car, someone says, "Look in that car," and points to the car next to us where we see a guy and a girl staring at us. They've been watching the 6 of us with our eyes shut and our ears covered, and now they're locking their car doors. That was it. We all lost it all at once, started back into laughing uncontrollably. One by one, all 4 car doors opened. We all got out of the car, just trying to get away from each other. The ground was a frozen sheet of ice, and one by one we all slipped and fell, still laughing, until the 6 of us are all on the ice, crawling in different directions, trying to get away from each other. One by one, we get to our feet and walk away from the car, trying as hard as we can to straighten up so we can go into the club. I think the frigid weather helped calm us as the cold set in and the laughter left. We approach the front door where the manager is standing with 3 bouncers. The manager steps forward, holds up his hand, and shakes his head and says, "Not tonight, boys." "What do you mean?" I ask him. He says, "We've been standing here watching you guys, and I don't know what you're on, but you're not coming in here." We don't even try to talk our way in and just head back to the car. We decide to hit another club nearby and head off before the manager calls the cops. On the way to the next club, Roy says he has to pee really bad, so Brett pulls over in front of this house that has turrets like a castle. There was a lot of money in this area and a lot of historical homes. There are a couple of inches of fresh snow on the ground, and Roy runs around into the front yard of this castle house with his dick out, writing his name in the snow. Only he's writing in huge letters, so he's running back and forth and assumedly pissing all over himself. This gets us laughing all over again. Okay, that's it for right now. This is a long-ass story. It's going to take a couple more readings. New Year's Eve, 77. New Year's Eve, 1977. We're reading Boston Accent. I'm Mark Mattioli. See you soon. Ciao.